Imagine this. You're in your late 20s. You've worked hard to build a solid financial foundation for yourself, and you're finally feeling like you have a handle on your life. But then, out of nowhere, you find yourself responsible for someone else's financial future, someone who doesn't have a plan, someone who is supposed to be the one you lean on, but now they're leaning on you. This was exactly the situation I found myself in. My mom, who had spent nearly 2 decades caring for her own mother, suddenly found herself without a support system when my grandmother passed away. My grandmother's pension was what kept everything afloat, and when that stopped, it became clear just how precarious my mom's situation was. So here I was, 28 years old, with a good job and a decent savings, but suddenly faced with the reality that my mom had almost nothing. She had a house, sure, with about $300,000 in equity, but that was tied up in a mortgage with a $1,700 monthly payment. Her only income was $980 from Social Security and SSI, plus some assistance for food and medical expenses. The gap between what she had coming in and what she needed to cover was enormous. And for the past 9 months, I had been filling that gap to the tune of $1,500 a month. The problem was, this wasn't a sustainable solution, not for me, and not for her. I wanted to help her, but I also needed to think about my own future. I didn't want to drain my savings or jeopardize my financial stability. So I found myself in a difficult position, needing to figure out how to help her without sinking myself in the process. We talked a lot about her options. Downsizing seemed like the most logical choice, selling the big house and moving into something smaller and more affordable, like a condo. But that idea came with its own set of challenges. My mom wasn't exactly in the best mental or physical shape, and the thought of her managing a move, finding a new place, and dealing with all the logistics felt overwhelming. Another option we considered was renting out a room in her house to generate some income. But again, this was easier said than done. Finding a trustworthy tenant, managing the rental, and making sure everything went smoothly was a lot to ask of someone who hadn't had to deal with anything like this before. I tried to help from a distance, but I couldn't be there all the time. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this option might end up creating more problems than it solved. Then there was the idea of her finding part-time work. She had a couple of associate's degrees, but her work history was spotty at best. After spending 18 years as a full-time caregiver, getting back into the workforce was going to be tough. Plus, there was the question of whether she could even physically handle a job. While her health had improved since she qualified for Social Security disability, I wasn't sure she was up for the demands of even a part-time position. Through all of this, one thing became clear. I needed to set some boundaries to protect my own financial future while still being there for my mom. But how do you tell your own mother that you can't afford to keep helping her the way you have been? It's a conversation no one wants to have, but it was one I knew I needed to. So, I started by having an honest conversation with her. I laid out the facts. I could no longer afford to pay $1,500 a month indefinitely. I needed her to be proactive about finding a solution, whether that meant selling the house, finding a tenant, or getting a job. I offered to help her explore her options and even to assist with the logistics, but I made it clear that the financial support I had been providing couldn't go on forever. It wasn't easy. There were tears, frustration, and even a bit of guilt on both sides. But in the end, we agreed that the best course of action was to sell the house. It would give her a financial cushion and eliminate the burden of the mortgage payment. It would also give her the freedom to move into a smaller, more manageable living situation. Of course, this decision didn't solve everything. Selling a house, finding a new place, and moving are all huge undertakings, especially for someone in their mid-60s. But it was a step in the right direction, a step towards financial stability for both of us. Looking back, the whole experience taught me some valuable lessons about personal finance and the importance of planning for the future. First and foremost, it's crucial to have a plan for retirement, even if that means making some tough decisions along the way. If my mom had downsized years ago or found a way to generate additional income, we might not have found ourselves in this situation. Secondly, it's important to set boundaries when it comes to helping family members financially. While it's natural to want to support those you love, you have to make sure you're not putting your own financial future at risk in the process. It's a delicate balance, but one that's necessary if you want to ensure your own long-term stability. And finally, communication is key. These kinds of conversations are never easy, but avoiding them only makes things worse in the long run. By being honest and upfront about what I could and couldn't do, we were able to find a solution that worked for both of us, even if it wasn't perfect. So if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, remember that you're not alone. It's a tough spot to be in, but with careful planning, honest communication, and a bit of creative problem solving, it's possible to find a path forward that protects both your financial future and your relationship with your loved ones. Thanks for watching. Subscribe Money Island for more new personal finance stories.